All right. What's going on, guys? It is here, Sunday. We have three games on the slate. Two okay games yesterday. Obviously, the late night slate with the Ravens, not as exciting like most I think expected. Chargers Houston game came as a surprise for some. I was on Houston plus 3.5. No, plus three. Sorry. I wanted to take Houston to win that outright, but I didn't have the guts to do so. That defense is legit, and that defense can keep them in games if that offense can show any semblance of life. I'm not expecting Houston to go far in the playoffs, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, solid game there, and then obviously the Ravens beating the crap out of the Steelers, which I think many people expected, to be honest with you. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the games that we have, talk some betting, just preview as well. And if you guys have questions or anything like that, feel free to send them my way. But when looking at the first game, you do have the Broncos versus the Bills. And this game, the line moved. Initially opened up at 8.5. We're down to minus 7.5 for Buffalo. So I guess more and more people are starting to kind of get in on Denver, covering at least. And we'll see. But in terms of matching up, from a rushing efficiency standpoint, the Bills are number 4 in the NFL. This Denver run defense is going to need to uh, stop the run. We know what the secondary can do in Denver. I think they match up really well actually on defense. You have Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel's been a non-factor pretty much the entire season. You have Dalton Kincaid, who has actually been a little bit of a letdown this year from what many expected him to be. And then, you take a look at the other receivers. Keon Coleman, the rookie, has started to kind of show some signs of life, and has had a better second half of the year. But just taking a look at these matchups, rushing in the red zone, this is the number 2 offense in the NFL, the Bills, when it comes to rushing in the red zone. One thing that Denver's done a pretty good job at on defense is, stopping teams in the red zone. You know, Bills offense number 1 rushing in the red zone. Hold on. Hang on. I'm sorry. Yeah, no. Bills defense is number 2 when it comes to rushing in the red zone, and then their offense is number 1. When you look at Denver, number 15 defense when it comes to stopping the run in the red zone, and then on offense, no surprise, they're 23. Denver's rushing offense has been pretty putrid. If there's one thing that you can do against the Bills, it is run the football. But they start to tighten up once you start to get close to the end zone. When looking at passing versus pressure, Josh Allen been one of the best in the NFL. Number 2, when it comes to, I'm sorry, number 2 on defense is the Bills. Sorry, I think grab my coffee. Hold on. All right. So when looking at passing versus pressure, you have the Denver offense number 22, rookie quarterback. He hasn't been pressured a ton, but in times where he has been pressured, he's been below average. Bo Nix and their defense. When it comes to stopping the pass when pressuring the quarterback for the Bills, just number 2 in the NFL. So there's an advantage there for the Bills. What's up, Joe? Glad to see you, man. And then when it comes to passing versus no pressure, 19th in the NFL, Denver is. So obviously, rookie quarterback Bo Nix has been somewhere around average for a rookie quarterback, probably above average. But from an NFL standpoint, just quarterbacking from a 17 game sample size, he's been slightly below average to average. But When it comes to pressure rate, they Denver keeps the quarterback, the least pressure in the entire NFL. Bo Nix, number one, when it comes to the offensive line, keeping him under, not under duress. And Bills defense, they're number 12 in the NFL for pressure rate. So that's good. And then when it comes to the Bills defense, I think the biggest thing for them is obviously going to be pressuring Bo Nix. This defense, when they don't get pressure, they're at the bottom of the NFL. This Bills defense, 30th in the NFL. This defense is when it comes to when getting passed on when they don't have pressure. So pressure is going to be key. And you look at Von Miller, who this is a big game for him. It's an emotional game, as comes to no surprise for many, being a guy that you know played in 2 Super Bowls for Denver, one of the best players in the franchise's history. Obviously gets traded. Denver, poetically enough, gets back to the playoffs finally. And Von Miller in their first game back in the playoffs, they square up against Von. So it's going to be interesting. Von knows Garrett Bowles. Does that play a factor into maybe providing somewhat of an edge to get to the quarterback? We'll see. Von has looked a lot better than he did last year. And I don't think he was healthy last year. I think he came back and he did talk about that a little bit too. But let's look at some other parts of the advantages here. When you look at quick passing, right? Bills offense is number 4 in the NFL for quick passing. Broncos defense is number 18 versus quick passing. This is a defense that provides a lot of cushions, and I think that could be something to watch in this game. Is do the Bills take the easy stuff, right? Or do they try to throw the long ball? The Bills are number 3 in the NFL for long passing, right? That's what they like to do, relatively speaking. They like to take shots. And Denver is number 1 against long passes down the field. So or deep shots. So that'll be an interesting matchup if Denver can. I said in the beginning of the show, but I think if Denver can lock up the explosive plays, they can keep this game close as long as their rookie quarterback and their offense don't completely throw up on themselves. But this Bills defense is not great. And if there's one thing we've seen with Sean McDermott, it's in the playoffs. Sean McDermott, his defenses tend to not show up. Or they just have, key mistakes in late parts of the game. So that'll be interesting. And then one thing about Denver too is, you know, we talked about the Bills being, if they don't get pressure on the quarterback, they're 30th in the NFL for limiting passing with no pressure. If you look at Denver, passing versus no blitz. Bills are number 5 in the NFL when they're not getting blitzed. Denver's number 1 in the NFL when they don't send pressure and they don't blitz. They can get guys home without sending pressure. And Vance Joseph is going to have to get creative in this game. I think that'll be a big thing. What's up, Alfredo? Vance Joseph's going to have to get creative in this one. But I think it'll be interesting to see. Some keys to the game as well. Rookie quarterbacks 5-17 in road playoff games since 1950, 0-5 since 2013. So it is not stacking up for Denver to win this game, but I do think that they can keep it close. If they, if those key things like, limiting the explosive plays is going to be huge, but I worry about Josh Allen and obviously, but I worry about him extending plays on third down. Right. It's going to be Denver, I think, is going to get, Josh Allen and this Bills offense into a lot of third downs, but can they contain him? I feel like we're going to see a lot of back-breaking runs where he's going to probably reach for the third down marker and get a bunch. So that'll be key to see. And can James Cook be the X factor on this offense? I think that's a big thing because I'm not expecting these wide receivers to blow up. The biggest thing is extending plays, but Denver's been really good even when plays have gotten extended in the secondary. At least they've been really good at staying home. So that'll be interesting to see. But they run a lot of man coverage, and running man coverage is worrisome at times because when you run a lot of man coverage, you leave a lot of open lanes for the quarterback to run because there's nobody around. When you're running zone, there's a guy sitting, next to the yard markers, waiting, in their zone. Where if man coverage leads all the defenders upfield, there's a lot of open space for a quarterback to take off and run. So do they keep a spy on Josh Allen? I don't know, but we'll see. But Von Miller will be the second player in NFL history to face a team in the playoffs that he had 100 sacks with. The last player to do that was Richard Dent with the 49ers versus the Chicago Bears in 1994. So those are the keys to this game here. We're going to shift over to the second game on this slate. The 4:30, which is going to be Eagles Packers. And Eagles are my team in the NFC to make it to the Super Bowl. I think they have the most complete team. I think the Packers have the second most complete team in the NFC, but the X factor here is Jordan Love. Like he got banged up last week and he just hasn't looked like himself, and the Eagles are at home, which is a nice advantage here. This line is 5.5. It opened up at 2.5, which I thought was pretty nuts in and of itself. I was pretty surprised to see, 2.5 points. I mean, that's pretty much at 2.5 points. You're pretty much saying on a neutral site, depending on what people always, the old saying always used to be home team gets 3 points in betting, but depending on the year and things change. Now it's sometimes people say it's closer to more 2.5. That means on a neutral site, they pretty much say that this is a pick 'em. So I don't see this game as a pick 'em. I mean, these teams squared off in the beginning of the year. Packers gave the Eagles a run for their money, but these are also very different teams. This Eagles defense is nothing like they were to start the year. And that game was also played overseas. And so being that it was played overseas, I think that's going to I mean, guys were slipping all over the field. The defense was not. I mean, this Eagles team struggled to find an identity, in my opinion, for the first half of the year on offense, at least, right? Like trying to figure out, like, can Jalen, like, it felt like they couldn't figure out how to get Jalen Hurts going. They were trying to ask him to do too much. And now we've seen Jalen Hurts in kind of like for lack of a better way of saying it, in more of like a game manager role, which isn't a bad thing, right? Like he's a guy that, like, if you ask him to do more, he's talented and gifted enough where he could do, go out there and make some explosive plays. But when you have Saquon Barkley, when you have a Vic Fangio defense that's clicking on all cylinders, like, you just play ball control football. We saw them hold the football for 12 minutes a couple weeks back against the Pittsburgh Steelers. 12 minutes I mean, that's like unheard of. That's like what you see the Chiefs doing right now, where everyone complains that the Chiefs, they're not scoring a lot of points and, they don't look as sexy, right? But I mean, they're controlling the football and they're playing good defense. Like that's mind numbing for teams, right? Like when you just can't get off the field on third down, like it's debilitating for a defense. And when a team just continues to slowly grind out a game. Now, you'd like to see a team be able to, to pop when they need to as well. And we've seen the Eagles be able to do that. Jordan Love on this side, like I worry about Jordan Love. He seems to have been a little bit overexposed. I mean, Anthony, who's not here today, he's talked about it a couple times, but like, we were expecting some regression from Jordan Love a little bit, right? I mean, I know he looked good last year, and I still like his, I like his outlook, right? I like his outlook, and I think he's a guy that can be the future for this team, but they don't have an alpha wide receiver. That's a big issue for me too. And Josh Jacobs is playing really well. So it's kind of similar to the Eagles where good defense can lean on the run, but I trust Jalen Hurts more to go out there if they need a play to be made, to go out there and facilitate a game-winning drive than I trust Jordan Love at this point. I've seen Jalen Hurts do it. And so spread's 5.5 now. Joe Carlton makes a good point. Hurts wasn't practicing yet. And I also think part of it too was we were still waiting for that Jordan Love news because he did get hurt. And I think people were unsure, like, is Jordan Love going to miss time? Like, I think that's why the books priced it that way. I didn't really have concern that Hurts wasn't going to play. Um, I think I mean, it's a mixture, I think, of a little bit of both with Hurts, but it Hurts not playing, but then Love, yeah, I mean, it probably makes sense because, they wouldn't be better fit. The line wouldn't be closer if they thought Jordan Love wasn't playing. So it probably does factor in the Hurts thing. I just think most people expected him to play, but I guess the books were just protecting themselves. But looking at the key insights in this game and looking at some of these edges, let's take a look here. So key advantages wise here, Eagles defense has been really good when it comes to similar to Denver, like not having to send a lot a lot to get to the quarterback, right? They don't have to send a ton of pressure. Now, the problem with the Eagles is when they actually do send pressure is when they get exposed a little bit. So they're 31st defense wise in the NFL when it comes to getting passed on when they send pressure. So I think it could have to do with just extending plays, having younger guys in the secondary. And when the plays get extended via pressure, it could have, some effects on the back end there with some younger guys. When it comes to quick passing, Eagles defense is number 2 in the NFL. I don't expect this to be a lot of quick passing though from the Packers. Like Jordan Love, when he does throw the football, he takes his shots. He is a guy that he's a gunslinger like that. You kind of live and die with what you get, but he's not there yet to be like, okay, well, the highs are high, so you take the lows when you get them. That's kind of what people said about Josh Allen for a while, but Josh Allen's actually protected the football more better than people. I mean, you look at his better than people make it out to be. I mean, when you look at his turnover to interception ratio, he's one of the best in the NFL for the last few years because he scores so many touchdowns. So when he does that, you can sit here and say, okay, I mean, you take it, Um, Jared Fortin's in the house said, "What's up, Pete Hopeball as well? Broncos big upset today." Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I'll be happy in one or two ways. I mean, I have the Bills and a lot of Bills in playoff leagues, best ball, other just draft leagues in general, playoff format leagues that I'm in. So I'd be pretty upset to lose all those guys, but at the same time, I do have a lot of, I mean, I am a Broncos fan, so I mean, I'd be happy either way. I'll take a Broncos win if it means that, a couple of my leagues I kind of get crushed in. That's just how I am. So Zach Linton is in the house, said, "What's up? What's up, Zach?" Fredo said, "Do you find it surprising Estime is inactive and Batty is active?" I do find that a little bit surprising. Yeah, I mean, Batty Batty being active and Estime not seems a little strange to me. They must see something in this run defense. I think the biggest thing with Buffalo is that they can get beat in between the tackles, right? And Tyler Batty, I don't really know what to expect from him. Like he showed some pop, and I think it could just be that Denver wants more firepower, right? Estime has been good; he can grind it out. And if he was a good enough pass blocker, maybe you would have Javante sit and not be active. But Javante provides so much in the pass blocking. He's a good receiver. He just thinks as a runner right now. He's just hasn't been the same guy from that injury. And so I think maybe Batty provides more pop than Estime. And unfortunately, Estime, I'd love to see him on the field. Like I said, if Estime could do what Javante does in the receiving game, it'd be perfect to have Batty, Estime, and Jaleel because you have some of those guys that can gash you, like Jaleel and Batty with their speed, and you have Estime who can pound it. It worries me a little bit with Estime out because now you're really relying on Javante to pound it. If those guys like Jaleel and Batty aren't giving you chunk plays, you're putting yourself in a tough position. I would like to see Denver use Bo Nix on the run more with some RPOs. They did use that a little bit more earlier on this season, but they've seemed to have gotten away from it. But I liked what I saw with the offense when they were doing it. So maybe they use Bo Nix as a runner, given that it could be the last game of the year, and they're more willing to say, hey, if, you obviously don't want to say if a guy gets injured, it's the last game of the year, but you gotta pull out all the stops when you're this big of an underdog. Um, Zach Lynn said, got you on the 50 in Pete. I don't know what you're referring to here, Zach. And maybe one of the leagues that we're in. Could be. Could be one of the leagues that we're in. Joe said, hit the like for peace, talking some good shit. Yeah, thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Yeah, if you're here, guys, hit me with a like. I just sporadically figured I'll just come on, talk some football. Obviously, fantasy football season's winding down. We still have the playoffs. I do have a league where I have Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts in a playoff format in DraftKings, which I thought was insane. I mean, never in a million years should I have been able to roster those two guys. DraftKings is really weird. But I got in early in one of those leagues, and I just got in a draft, and it fell. I got Devonta Smith in like the third round, and if you drafted in best ball this past best ball season for the playoffs, I mean, getting Eagles players were tough. Like if you drafted Jalen Hurts, you got to hope that one of it, likely not, you're not getting Saquon. Hurts and Saquon were locked in first rounders. Sometimes Hurts was like the first pick in the second round, but then AJ Brown goes a pick or two after, and then Devonta Smith usually mid to end second round. The fact that I got all three of those guys, I have some life. I had Nico Collins give me a pop game. So fingers crossed on that. If I could advance that team, that would be pretty sick. But we'll see. Mr. Grapefruit said, about to do a 3-man draft in the 3-hole. Hope I get Barkley. Otherwise, Bucky with one of those big QBs. Yeah, you're fine. I actually just did a 3-man. I don't normally do those, but I did do one today. Josh Allen didn't get picked for like 4 rounds almost, because in a 3-man, there's so many quarterbacks. But I was the 2 spot. And let's see, who did my lineup ended up pretty good. I did something similar to what you're suggesting. I wanted to go for Barkley. I didn't get him. I ended up going with Bucky. I went with Bucky, Terry, and Baker. So I tried to stack that game up, and I did get Rashad White as my last pick. And then I ended up going with Devonta Smith and AJ Brown with Marvin Mims. To me, Baker Mayfield has proven that he can put up big points. I think that's going to be a high-scoring game. In a 3-man draft, I'm looking for the skill guys, because everyone's going to have a good quarterback, especially with the quarterbacks on this slate. So, yeah, good luck with that. But, yeah, I mean, I guess just kind of closing out this game here, closing out this game here for the Eagles and the Packers, I want to know what you guys think. Send me your previews of what you think for this game. I'd love to hear what you guys are expecting out of this Eagles Packers game. I think Saquon, if the thing is Packers defense, right? When you look here at their defense, and I want to take a look at their rushing defense really quick. Run defense, overall, they're number 8 in terms of defense efficiency wise, against the run. But the offense for the Eagles, they're number 2. So that's going to be a huge matchup. I mean, Eagles are one of the best rushing offenses in the NFL. I don't have to sit here and tell you that. The Eagles pretty much present all of the advantages when it comes to the run game, whether it's defense. I mean, when it comes to their offense versus the Packers defense, but the Packers defense against the run are no slouch, right? I mean, they can still get it done. I think the biggest thing is if the Packers run defense can, neutralize Saquon slightly. Like when we talk about neutralize Saquon, we're talking 80 to 100 yards, maybe 1 touchdown. You'd be okay with that game with Saquon. Right. That's just how good he's been. You look at Derrick Henry last night and how good both of these two guys have been. Like these guys are going for $150, 2 touchdowns, a touchdown or 2. Saquon should have had more touchdowns this year. Jalen Hurts had 8 or more push tush touchdowns. I know it was a minimum 8. I didn't see these statistics, and I don't have it in front of me for the last few games of the year, but I know at one point he had 8 of his rushing touchdowns. So Saquon could have had way more rushing touchdowns, in my opinion. But that'll be a big key here. It's going to be a rushing offense for both. I mean, if the Packers can run the football, I mean, Josh Jacobs, this is the key. If Josh Jacobs can't run the football, I don't see a world where this Packers team has a shot on the road. It just feels like LaFleur is falling out of his trust is diminishing with Jordan Love. In the beginning of the year, it was Love was slinging it all around. Jaden Reed, everyone was getting all excited. Jaden Reed looks like he was one of the top guys in fantasy, top 12 guy at one point, right? And they started to rein things in. Jacobs kind of started off a little bit slow, but they were still giving him a lot of touches. As the year went on, it felt like LaFleur started to say, okay, we need to transition this offense. And good on LaFleur in some ways. A lot of offensive coordinators don't do that, right? That's what these guys get in their own way, where they don't want to make adjustments in the second half of the year, right? They want to stick to what was maybe working, and they can't adjust. But to me, Jordan Love's going to have to play like the guy that we saw, for that the first few games after injury, where he played okay against good against the Vikings, though a lot of turnovers. He played good against the Eagles, to be honest with you, outside of getting hurt. We're going to have to see that guy that we saw last year. And I don't know if I trust him getting it done, to be honest with you. So that's my feel on it. Let's take a look at the chat here real quick. Mr. Grapefruit said, yeah, it's a nice squad. Mims and Smith should do all. Yeah, I took Mims because I just figured, what, maybe I get a pop play. There wasn't a ton of meat left at that part of the draft. He was my last pick. And I always like getting Rachaad White. To me, I love Bucky Irving, but Rachaad White's been really good this year for fantasy. And he's still involved in this offense. He's been good for fantasy based on what Bucky's been doing. So yeah, Greg's in the house, said, what's up, Pete? What's up, Greg? How you doing, man? Paul said, I think the Eagles stomped the Packers. Green Bay's only hope was if Hurts couldn't play. Yeah, I think it could be close. I think the Eagles could stomp them, but the score probably might not reflect that. I think the score ends up being decently close, but the Eagles, because they run so much ball control offense, that there might not be a ton of points in this game. What is the total in this one? I am curious. If I had to guess, it's probably around like 42, 43. Waiting for this to load here. My computer's being a little slow on DraftKings. Okay. 45.5. So a little bit higher than I expected. Not that surprising though. But honestly, I would probably take the under at 45.5. I would take the under at 45.5. Saw said, I feel like they might do some passing options to Saquon. Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I could see them getting creative with Saquon for sure. Moving on to this next game, let's take a look here. All right, so moving on to the third game on the slate tonight, which is probably the game that most people are most excited about. You have the Washington Commanders going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is going to be a fun one. It's going to be a fun one. I'm excited for this one. You have a total that's over 50 points here, 51.5. Commanders are getting +3 here. So, Bucks are -155 on the money line. I've gone back and forth about this game. This one is a tough read for me. Bucks defense has come on strong, and we talked about this on the show, the playoff preview earlier this week. If you were here, Bucks defense has played well over the last few weeks. But when you look at who this Bucks team has played, over the course of the last few weeks, it hasn't been that many great offenses. Bucks, since let's just go back to let's go back over here to the Ravens. Gave up 41 points to the Ravens. Look, a lot of teams give up points to the Ravens. That's not a surprise. So, take that with a grain of salt. Falcons, 31 points to 26. They lost to the Falcons. The Chiefs got their first 30-point game against the Bucks this season. They had 30 to 24 in that win. 49ers got 23 to 20. Then they played the Giants. And then this is where things started to kind of get back on track for this defense, where Giants, they won 30-7 against a Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock led offense. Then they got the Panthers, who, credit to the Panthers, the offense has been playing better, but they still have a lot to improve on. And then, the defense gave up 23 to the Panthers. They got the Raiders. Okay. 13 points given up to the Raiders in that win. They got the Chargers, which is probably the most impressive win, 40-17. They stopped that Chargers offense that started to come alive again once J.K. Dobbins got back on the field. But there was no J.K. Dobbins for that game. Then they got the Cowboys. They lost. They gave up 26 to the Cowboys. They gave up 14 to the Panthers. They won that game. And then they gave up 19 to the Saints. Desmond Ridder. Fine. Their defense has looked better. But if you throw out, outside of that, once that Giants game started, this is a bottom 5 to 6 run defense in the NFL. And Anthony was on here the other day and he's talking about how, this run defense for the Bucs has been much better. It looks good. And in retrospect, yes, you play who's on your schedule. But to me, can they contain the rushing attack of a read option with Brian Robinson and Jaden Daniels? That explosive chunk plays that we're going to probably see. I don't see much defense in this game, right? And so it's really going to be about what quarterback turns the football over less. And as much as I love Baker Mayfield, he is he's third in the NFL for interceptions, right? And that worries me a little bit, right? I love Baker Mayfield. I think both teams are going to score a lot of points in this game. But when you look at the difference here, Jaden Daniels, I think he had 9 interceptions this year. He did fumble the ball 5 times, but I think he recovered all of them. And so that's going to be where I think the rubber meets the road. And that's not some big brain thing to say turnovers are going to be the biggest factor here. But I just, when you look at some of the advantages, right, the key advantages, right, Buccaneers have the advantages on quarterback scrambles. They're number 1 in the NFL for quarterback scrambles, and Bucs defense is 24th against quarterbacks who scramble. So really bad that they have issues with running quarterbacks. And yes, I know they looked good when they played Jaden Daniels, but that was week 1. This is a different football team. And you might say to me, well, then can't you say the same thing about the run defense for the Buccaneers? You're throwing out the last 5-6 weeks. And I'm not throwing it out completely, but what I'm saying is they didn't play many good rushing offenses. And they played some bad quarterbacks. I mean, Desmond Ridder, I'm sorry. Ridder, Spencer Rattler. I always get Ridder and Rattler mixed up. I don't know why. The last names always kind of mixed together for me. So yeah, I understand, but to me, week 1 for a rookie quarterback away, the good thing for Jaden Daniels is he's been in this stadium before. That's a plus for a rookie quarterback. Like, I know it seems like it's not that big of a deal, but his Buccaneers, this is not like a crazy home field advantage for this Buccaneers team. The weather should be good, right? It's a primetime game at night. We've seen Jaden Daniels look pretty good in primetime games. It's not a guy that gets scared of big lights. The weather's going to be good, right? And it's not a ruckus crowd that's going to be super loud and give Daniels trouble. And that's no shade to the Buccaneers fan base, but like, this is just not known for like a really good home field advantage. And so he's a quarterback that is getting to go play on the road in a stadium that he already played with. He got to play his first NFL game in that stadium outside of preseason, right? So I think that's a key advantage for Jaden Daniels as well. When you look at intermediate passing, right? Jaden Daniels in this Washington offense, number 8 in the NFL at intermediate passing. Buccaneers defense, 26th in the NFL on defense for stopping intermediate passing. When you look at rushing versus a light box, right? The Commanders take advantage of light boxes, right? Number 5 in the NFL. Whereas the Buccaneers, they don't stop the run unless they stack the box, right? That's the biggest issue, right? 24th against, when they have a light box, they're 24th against the run. rushing inside the tackles. I don't have to get into all that. That's not super exciting. But then we look at some of the advantages for the Bucks. Short passing for the Bucks. They're number 2 in the NFL. Washington Commanders defense, number 19 against short passing. There's more firepower on the offense for the Buccaneers. That is a big deal, right? I mean, both of these defenses are not great. I personally trust this defense for the Commanders more than I trust the defense for the Buccaneers right now. I know the Buccaneers are playing with a little momentum, but I just with what we've seen with Marshawn Lattimore against Mike Evans, like he's gotten the best of Mike Evans. So I think that should be a factor in this game too. If Mike Evans can get neutralized, right? And Baker maybe has to go to some other options, right? Does he press the football to maybe Mike Evans or some of these options and throw a couple interceptions, or just one could be the difference in this game because I don't think there's going to be tons of stops on defense in this game. When you look at pressure rate, right, Bucks offense has been really good operating against the pressure. Number 2 in the NFL when it comes to being pressured. They've done a really good job at still being effective against the pressure. Rushing outside the tackles, Bucks offense, number 8 in the NFL. And the Commanders defense is number 29 at stopping the run outside the tackles. So some interesting things to see in this game. I just think that Terry McLaurin gets a much easier matchup um, against that defense than I think Mike Evans will have against the Commanders. Commanders have won 8 or more games in 2014. They improved from 4-13 to 12-15. By the way, that is the biggest increase a rookie quarterback in a rookie season. It was CJ Stroud last year. I think he improved his team by 7 wins. It's not just him, but they improved 7 wins with a rookie quarterback and made the playoffs. Jane Daniels improved his team 8 wins and arguably, in my opinion, had a worse roster than Stroud did in a worse division, right? Stroud played in the AFC South, right? That is one of the worst divisions of football. You had the Jaguars, who were a mess last year. You had the Colts, who Anthony Richardson was hurt for pretty much the whole year, so Gardner Minshew was manning the ship. And then you had the I always forget the other team in this division. Colts, Jaguars, Texans, and why do I always have a brain fart on this? The freaking Titans. The Titans, right? Who were the Titans last year? So to me, it's more impressive to see what Jaden Daniels has been doing. So props to him. Mike Evans obviously gets his 1,000 yards. Terry McLaurin set the receiving touchdowns record, 13, which was pretty awesome to see. In his 13 touchdowns, ranked second in the NFL, only behind Jamar Chase. That connection thrived this year. So we'll see. The biggest thing is Benjamin St. Juice. If he gets lined up against Mike Evans, he could get eaten alive. This guy stinks, right? Marshawn Lattimore hopefully is matched up against Mike Evans. Okay. Marshawn Lattimore has lined up across Mike Evans on at least 50% of his snaps in 12 of the 13 games he's played, including the playoffs in his entire career, with only one game coming at 50%. So they're going to target Mike Evans when it's Benjamin St. Juice. Benjamin St. Juice covered Mike Evans on 76% of the snaps, but that was when Marshawn Lattimore wasn't there. He allowed 4 catches for just 37 yards, but 2 touchdowns as the nearest defender, right? But 76% of the snaps tells me that Marshawn Lattimore is probably going to cover Mike Evans around 75 to 76% of the snaps. Marshawn Lattimore wasn't on this team at the time that they played last time. So that's pretty much all 3 of these games. Now, from a betting perspective, some guys that I like today, I like Chase McLaughlin over 2 field goals made, minus 120. Disco gave that one out. If you follow him, Big Draft Energy, a friend of the show, does good content on his channel as well. I really like that one, so I'm going to ride with that. I like Bucky Irving to score today as well. I like the over in this game for the Bucks as well. I like the over in that game. I like the under in the Eagles game at 45.5. I'm comfortable even teasing that up to 46. So not have to worry about that hook there. Or maybe even buy the hook and bring it up to 46.5, to be honest with you, depending on what the juice is. Then let's talk since we're here. We're at the 39-minute mark. Let's talk a little bit about this Rams and Vikings game because the last two games on the slate for the playoffs are awesome. Absolutely awesome. Vikings and Rams, you get Bucks and Commanders. Look, I'm a Broncos fan. I'm excited about Denver versus Bills. I don't think a ton of NFL fans are excited about that because most people don't think that's going to be close. We did cover that early on. We talked about the keys to that one, but I mean, some really good games this week. Really, really excited. This Vikings and Rams game, 47 and a half points is the total here. Uh, Rams are plus 2.5. I believe they were plus three, I want to say, when they were home. Now it's pretty much moved to a more neutral site. We're going to now Arizona, and they're still dogs here at plus 2.5. So I think it moved up from plus three to plus 2.5. I think I could be wrong. It might have just stayed at plus 2.5 actually, and maybe just some betting lines. People hammering things just moved it around a little bit. But needless to say, uh, when you look at this game, I love the Rams. I loved them when they were in LA. I worry a little bit now that with everything going on with the fires, with all the distractions, now they're traveling. That home field advantage is no longer there anymore. We're pretty much playing on a neutral site now, which worries me. Now, last time we saw the Rams play the Vikings on Thursday night, the Rams got the best of the Vikings. I called that game. I worried that the Vikings were coming off an emotional game versus the Lions, and a short turnaround had me a little bit worried in that game. I do believe the Rams were home for that game, though. And so, again, that worries me. Now, I'm going to talk about some big keys that I see in this game, but let's just take a little bit of a wider scope here on this game. So points per game wise, Vikings ninth in the NFL with 25 and a half, 25.4. Rams 21.6. They're 20th in the NFL for points per game. Now, when you take a look at the point differential, Vikings plus 100, ninth in the NFL. Rams minus 19, 17th in the NFL. Point differential is huge, right? And that worries me a little bit too. Which Vikings team do we get here today? I think that's the biggest thing. Both this Rams and Vikings teams, Vikings have been way more consistent all year. Rams, their defense has come on, and I'm going to get into that. But record in close games, Vikings are 9-1 this year. Rams are 8-5. Just goes to show how many more closer games the Rams have played in. If this is a closer game, I trust the Rams more. And I know that sounds crazy because you look at the Vikings and you say they're 9-1 in close games. Why would you trust the Rams more? But the Rams have been more battle tested, in my opinion. They've dealt with a ton of injuries. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp were gone for tons of time this year. They overhauled the offensive line. So many injuries across that offensive line. And then they had a whole new defensive coordinator with young guys on that defensive line with Jared Verse, with Brendan Fisk, right? Secondary, a lot of new faces, right? And so to me, I think a big part of, some of these stats for the Rams, you saw them come on strong towards the end of the year. That 49ers game, throw it out the window. To me, both offenses were terrible, and the weather was an absolute disaster, right? We get a dome game here, which will be nice. Now, Arizona's field sometimes can be a little bit shitty too, so hopefully they have that in pristine condition. But average margin for victory, Vikings 9.6, 17th in the NFL. Rams have 5.9. That's 30th in the NFL. You know, that's not great. Turnover differential. Rams are plus 6. Vikings are plus 12. Biggest thing here is Vikings are one of the best teams in the NFL at intercepting the quarterback. They might be number one, and I have to look at that, but I don't have it in front of me. If Stafford can take care of the football, that changes how things go. This Vikings defense can be beat. We saw it the last time they played. Puka Nacua ate up their secondary. Cooper Kupp needs to show up. Where is Cooper Kupp? Does Cooper Cup show up in this game? That'll be a big factor too, right? Kyron Williams going up against this Rams defense, who's number one in stuff rate. Can Kyron Williams be effective? That's going to be big. Or is it going to be put on the shoulders of Matt Stafford? I trust Matt Stafford and Sean McVay more than I trust Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold. Nothing against both those guys on Minnesota. They've done a phenomenal job this year. They really have. But to me, you look at what Matt Stafford and McVay have done together consistently for a few years, and they won a Super Bowl together. They've dealt with a lot of adversity, a lot of turnover. They lost a ton of leaders, right? Aaron Donald retired. They lost their defensive coordinator. Now you look at the Vikings. They've dealt with a lot of adversity too. That's not to discredit them. I like a team that's been able to that we've seen do it before, right? The biggest thing is if Sam Darnold gets pressured, does he turn into a pumpkin, right? That's what everybody's waiting for. I think that's why people are so torn on this game because we don't know what version of Sam Darnold we're going to get. But when you look at this Vikings defense, okay, and give me a second because I want to make sure I have this stats 100% correctly. When you look at the Vikings, and I'm pulling up, I like to use NFL Pro for some of these things. If you don't have NFL Pro, it's great for film. If you're bored and you want to take a look at stuff, they have so much stuff at your disposal. But when you look at the team defenses, right? Quarterback pressure rate, the Minnesota Vikings are ninth in the NFL at 35.7% pressure rate. Pressure rate, not total pressures. That's just pressure rate in general. Total pressures, they're number 3 in the NFL though. Number 3 at pressuring the quarterback. They have 254, one behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and 11 behind the Denver Broncos, right? So, when we look at this Minnesota Vikings offense, who lost Darashaw, their left tackle, who's been out for a while now. It's not like they're just going to have to start adjusting now. But when it comes to quarterback pressures, wait, whoa, hold on. I made a big mistake here, mixing things up. But I read off the Vikings defense there, which is a plus for the Vikings. Don't get me wrong. But looking at quarterback pressure percentage, the Rams are 10th. Vikings are 9, Rams are 10th in terms of pressure percentage, pressure rate. And I want to say the Rams are probably they're 13th in total pressures this year, 218. But this defense didn't start getting going. It's a younger defense. It's a scheme that, they changed things up a little bit when they lost their defensive coordinator who went over and is now the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. But when you look at total pressures given up on offense and the pressure percentage, right? That's what I wanted to look at. The Minnesota Vikings are number 3 in the NFL for quarterback percentages for quarterback pressure rate, right? 39.3% of the passes that they throw, the quarterback is pressured on. And in terms of total pressures, that drops to number 9 in the NFL, with 246 given up. Right, pressure rate's more indicative. It's a bigger sample. It's a better stat in my opinion to look at the pressure rate as opposed to total amount of pressures. Right, if a team's not on the field nearly as much, they may not give up. If the Vikings offense is scoring a ton of points and they're not on the field as much because they have a lot of chunk plays, which they do, they can't get pressured as much. But pressure percentage, in my opinion, is more indicative. Now, I'm going to go over to the Rams here. I'm sorry. Rams are number 22 in terms of total pressures allowed at 188 this year, and total pressure percentage, the Rams are 20 at 31.7. So Stafford has been able to get the ball out quick. That's a product of McVay. I feel like the Vikings lean on their chunk plays with Jefferson, and Kevin O'Connell's done an awesome job. But I feel like they lean on those chunk plays more, whereas the Rams, they are moving a little bit more methodically down the field with they still have some chunk plays, but they're operating a little bit more methodically. And so I think that's going to be a big thing here. I like what this Rams defense has done. I mean, I'm pretty sure, and I'm going to pull it up now. But and Anthony pointed this out, and we talked about it. But this Rams defense has held opponents, the 49ers, which you said throw it out the window. So totally fair. But the last three games, 49ers had 6 points, Jets had 9 points, and the Cardinals had 9 points. They haven't given up more than 10 points. I'm sorry. And then they played the Seahawks with their backups. I'm not counting that. So in the last four games, three of their opponents have been under 10 points. And, I'm not counting Seattle because, you know, if you count Seattle, it's 3 out of 4. If you don't, it's the last three straight. The Rams didn't have any of their starters out there. So I just don't put too much stock into that. What's up, Albert? What's going on, man? So that's I mean, this Rams defense, if they can get, when we saw, I think the big problem that people are having right now with the Vikings, they went from, man, they could be a one seed and this team is legit. They're not actually a fraud. And I'm not saying that they are, but, we started to finally give them credit when they did what they did to the Packers. Everyone, started to feel like people like felt validation. Like, okay, you know what? I'll give the Vikings their credit. They actually are legit. And then they did what they did against the Lions. And we were like, what the fuck is going on? Like, you know, two things happened. Kevin O'Connell coached a terrible game. Okay. He tried to do things that he normally doesn't do. Okay. Lions are one of the best teams when it comes to fourth down conversion rate and going for two. The Vikings rarely ever did that this year. And for some reason, they went forward on fourth down multiple times and gave up a ton of points that they could have had. So that was a big issue. And Kevin O'Connell messed up big time, in my opinion. Sam Darnold got pressured a lot in that game, and he didn't look good under pressure. Is there a blueprint that the Rams can take from that previous game with the Packers where, they can go out and implement some of that to get pressure? I think so. Jared Verse is really good. Brendan Fisk and him have been working off of each other really well. Jared Verse is top 5, I believe, in pressures this entire season, not out of rookies, top 5 in the NFL. He's going to get defensive rookie of the year, in my opinion, and he should. Quinyon Mitchell's done a fantastic job, but I think that's how it's going to shake out there. Final pick here. I'm taking the Rams plus 2.5. If I'm going to give out my picks today, I have the Broncos at plus 8.5 to cover. I'm not taking them at 7.5. I liked 8.5. I'm not taking them at 7.5. I'll take Philly to cover 5.5 here. It's a little sketchy though. I liked them at 2.5. I got them at 2.5, but if I was going to really take a play here, it's the under. So why don't I just go Denver game? I'll take Buffalo to cover 7.5. And it hurts me to say that. If I'm giving out, my heart says Denver can win, and I can maybe not win, but keep it close. But if I'm giving out a pick and people might actually put money off of it, then in good faith, 7.5, I'm going to take Buffalo there. I would rather bring down Buffalo to like 2.5 and then maybe take the over in that Bucks game, right? But let's just say Bills minus 7.5. The under at 45.5. If you can tease it up to 46.5, great. In that Green Bay Philly game, the over in Washington Tampa Bay. I also kind of like Washington to cover, but I think the over is the money play there. I think that's the best pick that you can take. I think it's the best pick out of all these four games. I think that's the best pick. That is my favorite play. I'm definitely taking that for 2 units. And then the final game, Rams and Minnesota, I am going to take the Rams to cover plus 2.5. I am a little weary, but I like home teams that are underdogs. I like that they were playing at home a little bit better. Now they're kind of on the road, but I'm still going to take them plus 2.5. I think they have a formula to beat this team, and I think they cover, and I think they keep it close. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Really excited. Denver's getting started in 30 minutes. Wish me luck. Keep me in your thoughts. I know Alfredo's in the chat. He's a Broncos fan too. Keep me in your thoughts during this game. If it goes really bad, go easy on me. But I'm sure we'll be back tomorrow live like we always are. Appreciate everybody that's tuned in. Hit that like button on the way out. It'd be greatly appreciated. Help support the show. But yeah, been a great ride so far. Let's finish these playoffs out strong. Excited, enjoy these games. Whether you're with family, whether you're going to a bar, whether you're with your friends, enjoy these games. And if your team is in the playoffs, like mine, I'm soaking it in. We could get pounded today. I'm gonna still enjoy it. If you're a Packers fan, because I think the Packers are gonna lose, enjoy it though, right? I mean, we're here. If you're a Washington Commanders fan, probably more similar parallels to Denver. Washington loses, it's not the end of the world, right? You got here with a rookie quarterback. Things are looking up. But if you haven't heard it yet, my pick for the Super Bowl is Buffalo versus the Eagles, and I think Buffalo wins. I think I projected 30-27 was my final score. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.